got a little trivia for you. When's the last time you remember the 4th of July parade being on the 4th of July? I've had a lot of people mention that to me over the last few days. We're in a new millennium, and this is the first 4th of July parade of the new millennium here in the city of Plattsburgh. A number of parades were held around New York State today. Calvin taped one down in Malone earlier this morning. This is the first day of July, a beautiful Saturday with a stiff breeze in downtown Plattsburgh. A warm day in the 80s today, but a day that is absolutely beautiful to celebrate the 4th. And yes, it has been a long time since the 4th of July parade was on the 4th of July. But power is a great deal brighter, and I'm not sure, perhaps even wiser than me, decided to do it on a Saturday and leave Tuesday for I don't know what. I'm sure that we'll be celebrating on Tuesday, which will be the actual 4th of July, but with all these weekend holiday things, celebrations have changed a great deal since Calvin and I were young people, and those scheduled events were held on the scheduled days. Name a holiday, and that's the day it was. When I was a youngster, if somebody told me that the fireworks for the 4th of July would be held on the 1st of July because it fell on a Saturday, you know what would happen, don't you? That person would be called a traitor. But here we are in 2000, celebrating big time in downtown Plattsburgh. We're taping this at about 16 minutes before 5 in the afternoon. The parade itself, with the theme 50 Years of Rock and Roll, is now gathering at the CVPH Medical Center parking lot and will begin in about 16 minutes. We'll head downtown on Cornelia Street, right across Margaret Street in a southerly direction over to Broad Street, where it will eventually disband. We have promises that this year's parade will be bigger and better. There are fireworks later on tonight, which they originally said would start at 9 o'clock. They always do. These are the longest days of the year, my friends, and it's still quite light around 9 o'clock at night. So I'm guessing those fireworks will not begin tonight until 9:45 or so. They say dusk, but they'll wait till they're pretty dark. Brian Bissonette, City Recreation Director, and others have told me that these fireworks will be the biggest ever held in the city of Plattsburgh. Certainly they've spent more money on them than any of the other fireworks displays in the past. Things have been happening around Plattsburgh today. We just talked with Brian Lapierre and talked about Rotary supplying those flower baskets. I don't know if Calvin, maybe if you move forward and look down at the light pole down on the corner of Cornelia and Margaret Street, you can see the flower baskets. It cost the Rotary about $5,000 to supply those baskets to the light poles in downtown Plattsburgh, and believe me, it adds a great deal. This downtown Plattsburgh, Calvin and I have talked about it for a long time, and where downtowns across the nation are traditionally going downhill, this one has been picking up steam again. I'm proud to work down here and to be down here not only on the 4th of July, but Calvin is panning over toward the Clinton County Government Center, where I work in the probation department and the victim services office every single day. Downtown Plattsburgh is looking good. Over to my left and to Calvin's left as well is a victim's tree. Planted several years ago, just before my office actually opened up. It took an awful shot during the ice storm of '98. We didn't think it was going to survive. As a matter of fact, we thought we were going to have to raise some money and plant a brand new tree, but guess what? Mother Nature and the good Lord prevailed, and that tree is thriving these days. There is a nice crowd. I've been here since about 20 minutes after 4 in the afternoon. Beautiful crowd gathering in downtown Plattsburgh. Right up until, I'll say yesterday or the day before, it seemed like a lot of people did not know this parade was going to be held today. I had people tell me they were going to go out of town for the weekend, but we'll be back for the parade and fireworks on Tuesday. I said, if you do, baby, you're going to be too late, because it's being held today on the first day of July, the year 2000. Some good music in the background. We don't always have background music for our little corner shows, but today we have great background music. Let me tell you about some of the things that have been happening around the North Country today. When you view this, it'll be long after the 4th of July probably, but just to let you know that the North Country still knows how to celebrate the 4th of July. This morning, the Pendragon Theater at 148 River Street in Saranac Lake had a show, Rudyard Kipling's classic stories, in the theater adaptation. Here in the city of Plattsburgh, 4th of July celebration starting at 9 o'clock this morning. Expanded vending at City Market, formerly the Farmers Market, down below here and to our right from where we're standing, down on Durkee Street. And music at the City Market all day long. There was 3 o'clock in Trinity Park, the food court opened. The Blind Pig Blues Band, which you've been hearing in the background, playing from 3 until 7 p.m. Special hours for the Battle of Plattsburgh Interpretive Center and the McDonough Monument. You've heard us talk about those many times, both here on our little corner and elsewhere. 3 o'clock, the parade lineup for the floats began at the parking lot at CVPH Medical Center on Cornelia Street. 4 o'clock, the parade lineup for the marching units at the same location. And in about 10 or 11 minutes from now at 5 o'clock, the parade will begin. The theme again this year is 50 years of rock and roll. Starts from the CVPH Medical Center parking lot, continues down Cornelia Street, in other words, in an easterly direction on Cornelia Street, down here to Margaret Street, which is to our immediate left. It'll turn right or turn south on Broad Street. Will come past us. The reviewing stand is under the big top. Well, the not so big top, the yellow and white tent where the band is playing these days. And I don't know who the other judges will be, but I guess Brian Lapierre and Ducky Drake. I saw Ducky Drake with a yellow pad under his arm, so he's probably one of the judges. And the parade will go over to Broad Street, not very far from here, and we'll end there, but there will be lots and lots of people, youngsters and older folks, who will enjoy it. 7:30 tonight, Tammy Fletcher and the Disciples will be performing right here in downtown Plattsburgh behind the McDonough Monument. That should be a pretty good show planned for a little bit later this evening. And then the fireworks display, which should be at about 9:45 p.m. The All-American 4th of July celebration also took place from 10 until 3 at the Kent DeLord House Museum, 17 Cumberland Avenue here in Plattsburgh. We've been there with our little camera, our little corner cameras before, and we kind of like it there. There's even a ghost at the Kent DeLord House Museum. Jim Bailey, the city historian, is here making faces at me, and kids are gathered. Everybody's in a festive mood here today. Lots and lots of people are here. I see Billy Gwinnett, one of my favorite people, and his wife up in the corner. I've seen so many people that I know. And Ducky Drake and I were talking a few minutes ago. It's amazing. After living in this town since 1961, I come to an event like this, and I bet you 94% of the people I've never seen before. Lots of people I do know, but lots and lots of people I do not know. So the Kent DeLord House was open all day. If you haven't been there with your family, I think you would do well to do that. Malone Chamber of Commerce 4th of July events. Calvin will be broadcasting at least 27 minutes of that parade because he was down there this morning, and you'll see it. I understand that a temporary memorial in honor of the 3 Malone residents who were awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor was dedicated before the parade. Did you get to see that, Calvin? No, he didn't. Ceremony was held at the Veterans Memorial Park across from the Hotel Flanagan. 10 o'clock this morning. Calvin was a little late for that, I'll bet you. They've got a farmer's market, which was open down there as well, and that was kind of neat. There are lots of other things going on. Westport, Valley of Giants, giant scale airplane show at Westport. That would have been great. The Rouse's Point July 4th celebration is that today? No, Oh, late. It's ongoing, but the parade is tomorrow. Okay, they've got flea markets, food concessions, amusements. When I first came here in 1961, that was a place to be, and we never missed one of those, and the fireworks display as well. And there are great shows down at the Depot Theater in Westport. If you've never been down there, it's a wonderful little intimate theater where you can enjoy great summer stock. You can see Absurd Person Singular. And at the Pendragon Theater, the Heiress is going on. The 35th annual chicken barbecue at the Newcomb Town Beach, and we're going to miss it? Oh, what a shame. Another one at the Arsenal Green and Malone chicken barbecues. Somewhere in the North Country is great, and I don't mind telling you how pleased I am that some of the traditions are carried on, like the fireworks and the 4th of July parades. It's, I don't really know. I have mixed emotions, I guess, about having it on the first day of July, but I'll let you think about that a little bit. When you get caught up in the emotion of a day like today, even though it's a Saturday, July 1st, you can't help but be excited about our nation and our North Country. The good Lord has been good to this country in so many ways. Sometimes maybe we didn't deserve it, but the economy is pretty good. Life is good for me. Calvin and I feel great. We feel pleased that we have the wherewithal to do these little shows called Our Little Corner. I have to tell you how emotionally moved I was yesterday when we recorded a special program for the Advocacy and Resource Center on South Peru Street in Plattsburgh. It was an open house, and Jim Miner and his crew showed us through. But the most emotional time for me was a little play called Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Quite a large number of the folks who take advantage of the services there at the Merit Center worked for a long time memorizing lines and building sets and put on that show. And there were some standing ovations. I'll tell you, the Wicked Witch she was wonderful when she said mirror, mirror on the wall, and that cackle and laugh of hers when she gave the poison apple, that was pretty decent. So if you want to support an organization, you think about supporting the Advocacy and Resource Center here in the North Country. It's great to see families gathering here today. I see quite a few people I know, and lots of people I've never seen before. Some people came prepared. I'm sure about an hour ago they came with their lawn chairs, with their coolers, with their bicycles, with their velocipedes, with their cars, and they start to gather. People have their household pets. I would imagine on the first day of July, the downtown businesses, the coffee shops and the bars are doing a brisk business. I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe even the eateries in downtown Plattsburgh. A lot of kids have brought their flags. I'm a flag waver, those of you who know me and listen to my long career on the radio. And now with Our Little Corner with Calvin for the last 3 years, know that I'm an unabashed patriot. I believe in our country in spite of all its problems, and I love to wave the flag, and so that's why it pleases me to see youngsters here smiling. There's a face with you. How about that, with the flag under the chin? There are flags all over the place, and you will hear, no doubt, some patriotic music when the parade comes by. It's 3 minutes before 5, and that parade will be starting around 5 o'clock, and I'm not sure if it'll take a half an hour or 15 minutes to get here, but when it does, guess what, folks? You will get to see all of it through the eyes of the hometown cable camera and a little program called Our Little Corner. I'm sure a lot of people will bring their video cameras and their still cameras with them to the parade downtown Plattsburgh on this, the 1st of July 2000, the first 4th of July weekend parade in the new millennium. And while Calvin pans around and just catches people relaxing and enjoying the 4th of July weekend, I want to read something that several people have sent to me via email over the last few days that has to do with our country's independence and the 4th of July. For those of you who have been following the newspapers, television, and radio programs about it, one of the few copies of the original Declaration of Independence has just been sold for millions and millions of dollars. So people still care about our country, and they know the value of the Declaration of Independence. I have no idea who wrote this piece I'm going to read for you now, or I would give them credit, but I thank them for doing it in any case because it gave us something to read during this 4th of July weekend. Have you ever wondered what happened to the 56 men who signed the Declaration of Independence? 5 signers were captured by the British as traitors and tortured before they died. 12 had their homes ransacked and burned. 2 lost their sons serving in the Revolutionary Army. Another had 2 sons captured. 9 of the 56 fought and died from wounds or hardships of the Revolutionary War. They signed and they pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. What kind of men were they? 24 were lawyers and jurists. 11 were merchants. 9 were farmers and large plantation owners, men of means, well-educated. But they signed the Declaration of Independence knowing full well that the penalty would be death if they were captured. Carter Braxton of Virginia, a wealthy planter and trader, saw his ships swept from the seas by the British Navy. He sold his home and properties to pay his debts, and he died in rags. Thomas McKean was so honored by the British that he was hounded by them until he was forced to move his family almost constantly to stay away. He served in the Congress without 1 penny of pay. He and his family had to stay in hiding. All of his possessions were taken from him, and poverty was his reward. Vandals or soldiers looted the properties of Dillery, Hall, Clymer, Walton, Gwinnett, Hayward, Rutledge, and Middleton. At the Battle of Yorktown, Thomas Nelson Jr. noted that the British General Cornwallis had taken over the Nelson home for his headquarters. He quietly urged General George Washington to open fire. The home was destroyed, and Nelson died bankrupt. Francis Lewis had his home and properties destroyed. The enemy jailed his wife. She died within a very few months. John Hart was driven from his wife's bedside as she was dying. Their 13 children fled for their lives. His fields and grist mill were laid to waste. For more than a year, he lived in the forests and the caves, returning home to find his wife dead and his children vanished. A few weeks later, he died from exhaustion and a broken heart. Norris and Livingston suffered similar fates. Such were the stories and the sacrifices of the American Revolution. These were not wild-eyed, rabble-rousing ruffians. They were soft-spoken men of means and education. They had security, but they valued liberty more. Standing tall, straight, and unwavering, they pledged, for the support of this declaration, with firm reliance on the protection of the divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. They gave you and me a free and independent America. The history books never told you a lot about what happened in the Revolutionary War. We didn't just fight the British. We were British subjects at that time, and we fought our own government. Some of us take these liberties so much for granted, but we shouldn't. So, take a few minutes while enjoying your 4th of July holiday and silently thank those patriots. It's not too much to ask for the price they paid. Remember, freedom is never free. I thought that was a nice piece, and I read it and enjoyed reading it, showed it to everyone I knew, and I brought it with us tonight on the first day of July 2000 as we get ready for the 4th of July parade in downtown Plattsburgh. We have literally hundreds of people lining the streets downtown here. We're along the first turn of the parade route, which begins about 3 or 4 minutes ago, if it were on time, at the CVPH parking lot on Upper Cornelia Street, headed east on Cornelia, and will turn here at the intersection, hopefully within the next 20 minutes to a half hour, and will head southbound on Margaret Street right through the center of downtown Plattsburgh. I want Calvin to spin around a little bit and take a look way up on the roof. Either that's a figurehead which has been there for 150 years, or there's a young woman right on top of the roof. You talk about a vantage point. The pigeons wouldn't have very far to go to do you know what on that lady's head, would they? She's got a good spot to see the parade. We see a lot of windows open in the great old buildings with new facades in downtown Plattsburgh. And many, many people are gathered here to watch the parade. Last year we saw people on some of the rooftops down here as well. It's very interesting that you can see the top of the Madonna Monument right across the street in downtown Plattsburgh, a tribute to people who lived in the second decade in the city of Plattsburgh, second decade of the 20th century. It's a wonderful monument, and we worked very hard years ago to get it open to the public after it remained almost derelict and filled with pigeon dung for years and years, and finally got it open, and it's open now on special occasions. We'd like to see it open a great deal more so that some of the more hardy citizens who might be viewing this program could climb to the top and get a view out of those little tiny windows up there that they may never have seen before. You can look to the north, south, east, and west, the way it's oriented, and when you're looking out over Lake Champlain, you can see the actual scene of the Battle of Plattsburgh, which was held on September 11th, 1814. This community and this county has a long connection with the military history of the United States of America. There has been a military presence in this area since way back when. I had the opportunity last night to go out on Lake Champlain on a boat called the Essex out of Port Kent. A friend of ours, Marge Cluett from Peru, celebrated her 80th birthday. We went out for a few hours on Lake Champlain, were treated to some just absolutely tremendous music from the 30s, 40s, and 50s, and a lot of good friends. But besides that, we got to see Lake Champlain and its shoreline like many people never got an opportunity to see it. And when we came up close to the western shore of Lake Champlain, about 15 miles south of Plattsburgh, and I looked at those rocky, craggy cliffs, and I could see that ancient railroad bed that had been carved, literally carved out of the rock. I said to myself and to my wife, Kay, one of these days we're going to get on a train and we're going to head south from here just to get a view of Lake Champlain. Until you've taken that ride, or at least been out on Lake Champlain and looked at the shore, our shore, and the beautiful green mountains across the lake of the state of Vermont, you have no idea how truly spectacular this area is. Some of us who've lived around here for a long time tend to take this area for granted. The people, the government, the shopping and stores, and the natural beauty. I like to step back every once in a while and just drink it in. When you're out on Lake Champlain, either on the Juniper with our friend Captain Frank, or going across the ferry to Vermont at Port Kent, or here from Cumberland Head, the Grand Isle Ferry, or if you're fortunate enough to have a sailboat or another kind of boat that goes around Lake Champlain, you know that we do have a very special place. And I've stayed here for the last almost 40 years, enjoying this community and the people that live here. Calvin has been here for his entire lifetime off and on up in the Champlain area, and we both agree when we get a chance to talk seriously about it that there probably is not a better place on the face of the earth to live. It's really a nice place here in the city of Plattsburgh and Clinton County and the Great North Country and the Tri-County area. There is so much to offer, from the high peaks of the Adirondacks to the Green Mountains of Vermont across the lake. And yes, I would be remiss if I didn't mention our neighbors to the north in Quebec, because that triangle of excellence does continue. We've interviewed Plattsburgh's Mayor Dan Stewart on several occasions, on this program, on other programs that you're likely to see on your public access channel, and we like the way he's been doing business in downtown Plattsburgh and this area. We're very anxious to see what the future of the former Plattsburgh Air Force Base will be. We follow those stories in the newspapers and in the media almost daily to see whether new stores and new businesses will be coming to town. But at the outset of this program, I said business was pretty good in Plattsburgh and things are looking up. So with that having been said, I can tell you that we have a lot to celebrate on this 4th of July weekend in the new millennium in the year 2000. And primary among the celebrations is the big 4th of July parade, which probably will be getting here in about 10 or 15 minutes. It's now 10 minutes after 5. I hope you enjoy it through the eyes of the Calvin's camera on Hometown Cable. I think this parade is doing double time. We're at just 17 minutes after 5, and the 4th of July parade on the 1st of July has already turned the corner, led as it is traditionally by a member of the Plattsburgh City Police Department and a Canadian Marching Band coming by. Oh, it's St. Albans, Vermont, it says here. St. Albans, Vermont, right. Wow, wonderful. I'm sorry I did not get a list of the parade entries today, so we're going to leave a lot of this to your imagination. Cindy Fitzgibbon and our good friend Bird Burdan, Grand Marshals of the City of Plattsburgh. Aren't they terrific? John Iannelli donated the car and he's driving. John Iannelli, former mayor of the City of Plattsburgh. Take a look at the plates from 1948, the license plate. And the NBC Peacock is there. And here comes Helen Iannelli in another one of the Iannelli cars. Helen Iannelli, very much involved, City of Plattsburgh. Look at this great Plattsburgh Fire Department fire truck that dates back to the beginning of time. I think the inmates in Dannemora had a lot to do with it. There's Rosemary Schoonmaker. There's Bob Shimko. There's the mayor. There's Keith Hercolo. There are all kinds of folks. Here's another city police car coming by. Yes?
They must have a date somewhere. They're in a hurry. Everybody's rush.
Isn't this amazing? I've never seen a parade move this fast in my life. Remember what fire trucks looked like when you were a kid? First of all, they were all red, right? Can you imagine the sacrilege of having a green truck or a yellow truck or a blue truck?
I remember in the early 70s when Champlain got their yellow Han. There was a lot of scandal back then.
Oh, Oh, yeah. Look at the nice truck, blue trucks in Peru. Plattsburgh Fire Department ambulance.
Most gorgeous ladder truck today in Malone. A Malone call fireman. Beautiful truck.
No kidding.
Beautiful.
Well, we have a couple of large ladder trucks here in Plattsburgh because we do have some high-rise buildings, you know, up to 13 stories that require ladder trucks. Oh, yes. Things have come a long way since the firefighting days that I can recall. Those big hook and ladder trucks in New York City were a little different then. I think it's a lot of all the 4th of July parade in my lifetime. I don't believe I have ever seen a parade march that fast. Can you believe that? Either they've been told, speed it up because this is a long, long parade. Oh, Calvin, take a look at this. Is that absolutely beautiful? Is it a Mercedes? I think it's an ancient Mercedes.
That could be Sam Fairchild's replica. Sam Fairchild from Chazy always has it in the parades. It's a replica that's built. We've got some county legislators coming by.
Oh, yeah.
And the Assemblyman.
And Assemblyman Ortloff, the Rabidoos, all right. Throwing candy. Most of the floats have music, of course. These are Republicans. Can you tell?
You said that just as I was pointing at the clowns there.
Oh, you did?
You're going to get us in trouble.
Okay. No, we don't make any comments about what. We just try to call it as we see it. This is really neat because the theme of the parade is 50 years of rock and roll, and this is the First Assembly of God Church at 164 Prospect Street in Plattsburgh, and their float is called the First Rock That Rolled, and it says Jesus is risen. I think that's a very, very clever tie-in with 50 years of rock and roll. Calvin, you were telling me what you heard on the radio today.
As I was coming back from the Malone parade, I put it on a local radio station that carries Paul Harvey, and next to Gordy Little, Paul Harvey's always been my favorite radio announcer.
I wouldn't doubt a Paul Harvey any day of the week.
And he was giving a little dissertation on the Declaration of Dependence and pointing out to us that the people who wrote that Declaration of Independence also put in there our Declaration of Dependence on God and how we've gotten away from that over the years.
We like to interject a little bit of religion in our program called Our Little Corner. Not trying to dictate to people what kinds of faith they should have, but that they should have faith in a higher power, we believe, because we would be a little bit naive and way too vain if we gave ourselves credit for this beautiful day and this beautiful parade and this wonderful nation for which we get up every day and go to work.
Well, I hate to get on our soapbox here, but...
Oh, why not?
But, when I listen to people who are crying for freedom of religion, most of the time they're crying for freedom from religion. They don't want any religious services out there, any religious knowledge out there, and I think that's a shame. The more we know about other people and about the religions, the better off we all are.
It's very interesting, the controversies over prayer in schools. And where did we see on the news in the last 2 days where they're posting the 10 Commandments in a building because they've determined they can do that if they post the 10 Commandments somewhere where there are other items of historical interest. So isn't it amazing?
Yeah, I was As a Catholic, I was very disappointed when they had as we're taping this, a recent ruling by the Supreme Court that banned school prayer in Texas before their football games. I was very disappointed that a Catholic family was one of those that initiated that. I think that's very bad.
It's still rock and roll. 11:45 games, playing your oldies but goodies. Backstreet Boys, Kiss, rock and roll all night long. That must be, is that the Ames float? I see Ames on the back. It says Mountain Dew, 50 years of rock and roll. It's kind of a neat, very colorful float. I think those may be brownies or future brownies, maybe.
They're kind of purplies.
Yeah, purplies. What would...
Hazy.
Here's the cool 105 van that we have seen all over the place. What would parades be without clowns, right? And a couple of clowns right here broadcasting the parade. Here come some Cub Scouts. I'm not exactly sure how their tent and their outdoor theme fits the 50 years of rock and roll. Unless they got a very small group inside playing.
Well, it's packed 55, so it's close to 50 years.
Okay, I'll accept that explanation. Somebody's artificial Christmas trees on the back end of that. I'm trying not to trip over your cord here. You see the signs: reverent, loyal, brave, respect.
That's
cheerful.
what rock and roll's all about, right?
Oh yeah, and here's a strange creature with many legs. It's a ladybug. What do they call a male ladybug? Did you ever think about it? Here's the Dare car. Dare is a controversial program that seems to have worked very well here in the city of Plattsburgh. We remember going into the classrooms when it first started with Dave Favreau, and watched as many classes graduated from the local schools. We've been privileged to give the addresses to some of those classes of students to try to inspire them to live clean lives. And speaking of blue and white fire trucks, that's kind of neat. I love their logo on the side. See the logo right on the front door? That's kind of a neat truck. 273, E273 for the Peru Fire Department. All right, we got some real rock and roll. Bill Haley and the comments are coming. American Red Cross, Sir Dance-A-Lot, rock and roll is here to stay. Let's listen to it. The guy in the flashy green shirt and the funny brown pants and the beard is Peter Cadieux, in case our audience didn't recognize him. look at the wigs. I mean, unbelievable. Little spiked hair. And I would say that does adhere to the theme, wouldn't you, Cal?
They kind of covered right from the start to the current evolution of rock and roll. What goes as rock and roll now. I'm not quite sure it's quite what the founders of rock and roll had in mind. But
our congratulations to the American Red Cross serving the Northern Tier, and Jeannie Roberts, who is always on the front line when there are problems and on a daily basis helping people who need help. We have seen her assist so many thousands of folks in this area and across the country. I know I've called upon Jeannie in my capacity as a victims advocate in the probation department to help on some occasions, and she's always been right there. Not to mention the fact that she and George are true and wonderful friends, and it's such a pleasure to have Jeannie in our midst. Not to mention the fact that her wonderful old house is haunted, or so they claim. So they've generated one of my infamous true ghost stories. There is a rather large gap in the parade.
Yeah.
I don't think it's over yet, do you?
No, I don't think so. That was phase one.
I think somebody came down Cornelia Street and said, "Man, I'm getting tired. We got to slow this thing down."
probably somebody like me in that next marching unit. I did want to point out to any camera people out there that I did not deliberately take this spot right in back of this pole here. We had a better spot, but we vacated it momentarily to go get a soda, and when we came back, it filled up very quickly. So,
you know what they say about a liquid that tries to fill in the space that's allowed? Well, this is a flowing crowd, and they flowed right into that little 2 square inches that you and I had picked out for ourselves.
And so now we're stuck behind this light pole, but outside of that, it's a nice spot.
Yeah, the light poles, another part of downtown Plattsburgh, they look like they were placed here in the last century, but they weren't. They're kind of neat. It started down on Durkee Street with a rehabilitation. Durkee Street that was originally called South River Street, right? And River Street went through downtown Plattsburgh and changed into Durkee Street. We've done a lot of historical retrospectives here in downtown Plattsburgh because we like this community in which we live. But we do the same for your community. If you live in somewhere within a very short driving distance of this area and you'd like to have something about your community featured on our little corner, Calvin and I would love to have your suggestions. We interview people, we look at towns and buildings, we try to cover events. Our little corner is kind of a potpourri of the North Country, and it's a celebration of life here, and I hope it comes across in a way that will be pleasing to our viewers. Nothing makes us happier than to put a program on one of the public access channels and have people tell us later that they actually decided to forego their favorite program. I could name several favorite programs that are on television these days because they saw a ball team that they wanted to see where the kids are playing, a parade such as this, or an interview or a place. And when you look back over all the years, Calvin's been doing this since 1983, right, Cal?
Yeah, June 11th, 1983, our first program went on.
You think about that, for all the years that the late Bob Venn did 500 or more programs, and I don't know how many you and I have done since 1997, but
Closing in on 150.
Closing in on 150 is kind of neat. It's hard to believe that I've written something like 163 or 4 newspaper columns since I left the radio business as well. To say that I don't appreciate living in the North Country would be absolutely wrong. I'm just glad to be alive, glad to have the strength and energy to do what we do and bring you little slices of life from time to time, this way and in many other ways. Oh yeah, we got cool music. Country dancers.
A step ahead.
A little bit of exercise, and all of a sudden, right in front of the reviewing stand, the music stopped. That's always a good idea.
Oh, I'm sure they got another CD in there somewhere.
You think so, huh? Plattsburgh Municipal Lighting Department. It's a good idea while we're here to say that that's one of the great advantages to living and running a business here in the city of Plattsburgh. Plattsburgh Municipal Lighting Department still one of the nation's lowest rates for power. And look at that beautiful old Indian motorcycle that is almost identical to the one that we had back in the 1950s. We fell off a few times until my mother said, "Are you beginning to see a pattern here?" There's another truck from the Plattsburgh Municipal Lighting Department. Public power serving Plattsburgh, lighting your way into the future. We watched the Plattsburgh MLD in action. I have since the mid-50s when I first came to work here on construction, building the former Plattsburgh Air Force Base. We saw them launch into the age of nuclear power and that infamous nuclear surcharge, but still we have the lowest, if not one of the lowest, rates for power in the United States. Pretty neat. It's quite an incentive for people to start businesses in and around the city of Plattsburgh. And yes, they are putting on a show for the judges. As you can tell, the weather on this first day of July 2000 is stupendous. After weatherman decided to get some rain out of his system yesterday morning, skies began to clear. There was a brisk breeze on Lake Champlain last night as we were out in the boat for Marge's 80th birthday party. That was wonderful. And today it's just been a terrific day with just enough of a breeze to make us not feel overly warm at all, just to enjoy a summer day in downtown Plattsburgh. I'm still working on the Macarena. That's been passé for years.
I remember making a mental note last year that we'd get in front of the reviewing stand, so when the bands and others performed, we'd be in view. But
like many of our mental notes and the other things we've done in our lifetimes, the best laid plans didn't really come true. But we're not that far away. A lot of changes going on in downtown Plattsburgh, especially in county offices and buildings. By the time we bring you the next 4th of July parade in the year 2001, many, if not most, of the county offices will have moved. A lot of work is being done in the old courthouse and the old buildings here, which have been here and survived the last century or so in downtown Plattsburgh. And the probation department, where I work, will be moving over to the old courthouse at some point in time. The Office for the Aging has gone to temporary quarters on Plattsburgh Air Force Base. We'll hope to find another home somewhere here in the city of Plattsburgh very soon. Once again, I should mention that the theme of the parade is 50 years of rock and roll. We've heard a lot of good rock and roll music. A lot of people say that Bill Haley and the Comets lay claim to the original rock and roll music, although it was around even before that famous movie, Blackboard Jungle. Have you ever seen that movie?
I've seen bits and pieces of it. I don't think I've ever sat down and watched the whole thing.
I remember going to see that movie and being blown away by rock around the clock. And over 100 years of community service. Some of your friends and mine rock and rolling for the Knights of Columbus, right?
Well, Columbus rock and rolled his way over here, right?
He certainly did. I think they should have had somebody up there moving that ship up and down just a little bit on the way by, right? Here's the Columbian Squires, John K. Collins, Circle 515. A few empty chairs there. Maybe they're going to do musical chairs when they get in front of the reviewing stand.
Maybe they're inviting people to join.
How old would you say that hay wagon is? Take a look at the wheels. That's been in a farmer's field for more than 2 weeks, I guarantee you that.
Yeah, I'd say that was probably bought in the 1960s sometime.
Have you ever ridden on the back of a hay wagon there, Calvin?
I fell off one once.
Did you really?
Yeah, our old John Deere only went about 12 miles an hour at top speed, and it was slowing down to pull into our yard, and I was sitting on the back, and so I'll just jump off. But you know that old moving vehicle thing that when you jump off of one, you keep moving?
Oh, yeah.
I went down the back of my head.
Whoa, baby. All right. I think this is Smokey Rabidou and the RSVP Kitchen Band. Let's listen to them. Be forgotten, keep your eye on that grand old flag. Smokey! Give away my age here, but I go way back to the early days of Josie Spear and the RSVP Kitchen Band, and Josie moved away from this area and died in Florida. And Smokey Rabideau continues that great tradition. I'm sure there's music because I can see the lady playing, but I can still hear Smokey singing down there. It's a grand old flag.
These are the Democrats, I guess. They've got all the Democratic county legislator there.
Yep.
And Neil Talon, who's probably running against McHugh again.
And that's Keith Defiant in the back.
He's all the legislators from the Democratic side.
But he does stand up for his side of things, doesn't he? He's certainly not afraid to speak out when he's got an opinion, that's for sure.
He hasn't got much to lose.
No. Keith's a good friend and has been for many years, and his dad, Isidore Defiant, we remember way back in the old days and all those dollars for dystrophy, muscular dystrophy drives we ran in the city of Plattsburgh on the radio. Rock and roll is here to stay. Oh, look at this. Look at the little donkey.
No comment. No comment.
It's John Gallagher over there. Clinton County Fair. Trace Adkins, sponsored by Western Winds. So at 8 o'clock, the fair this year is a little bit later than usual, August 1st through the 6th.
And it's going to overlap the Franklin County Fair. Theirs is from the 5th through the 13th.
Yeah.
And theirs is the 150th.
Oh, that's right. Today is their sesquicentennial, huh? Beautiful old car. That's an old Oldsmobile from way back when. I'm not sure that I'd want to be trying to walk on those stilts. I got a lot of good stilt stories. They always have a unhappy ending with me falling down somewhere.
I thought Plattsburgh State had done a nice job of recruiting here for a while.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if it's easy or not. They look like they're having a good time. Those are mighty big strides.
And let me tell you, with those pants, if you start falling, you can't get out of those either.
No.
You're at their mercy.
You better hope there's a building to lean up against somewhere, or somebody walking by with a pet giraffe, right? Oh, okay. There are a lot of floats in the parade this year. Excuse me, I did not see the parade lineup, so I had no idea what's coming. It's a glass slipper, Ice Show 98. Could this be the skating club of the Adirondacks? I believe it is. I can see the back part of the sign up there, and I can read it backwards.
Yeah, and they put on a fine show this year, Peter Pan.
Yeah, they're a wonderful group of dedicated people. Some folks have graduated from the skating club of the Adirondacks to become pretty famous in that field. We're proud to have them here. Whatever happened to the ban on throwing candy a couple of years ago?
That was popular for a while, then it just seemed everybody got right back into it. I feel safer without the candy myself.
People are being sprayed right here by the Beekmantown brush truck. The grass and brush truck. Every now and again I see a little squirt coming out of the hose. Now because of the brush fires and grass fires in the North Country, most departments have what they call a brush truck, four-wheel drive truck with a water tank that allows them to get. But you know, I don't remember as many grass fires in the last year or so as we used to have. I can remember so many back in the 60s and 70s. Maybe people are wising up.
Oh, this spring we had 2.5 days with no rain, and they weren't consecutive.
That's probably the good reason for fewer grass fires. Oh, didn't we see this car last year in the parade? Where do you suppose they saved it all this time? Or either that or I saw it up in the Saranac Lake Parade, I'm not sure.
I don't remember it from last year.
Or maybe I saw it in the Saranac Lake Parade. Get greased, it says. Very clever design, isn't it?
Yes.
Look what the front wheels are made of. Those are those blow-up snow sled things. Very, very interesting. And Clinton County Rural Transportation, the cart bus represented here. Now we've been about 32 minutes already in this parade on the 1st of July 2000. It's about 13 minutes before 6 in real time. That's Hometown Cable, Calvin Castine and Gordy Little, proud to be here to enjoy this celebration of our nation's beginnings. Country music, WOKO. Here's the Adirondack Bike Fest coming up. Boy, when I was down in Myrtle Beach from the 19th of May till the 28th, unbelievable. I saw more motorcycles than I've ever seen in my life. They have some beautiful bikes. Here are a couple of nice ones coming right here. Oh, they're giving, looks like they got a raffle for that bike on the trailer. It says win this bike for a $5 ticket. Yeah, we got quite a few very nice bikes coming up here. About 15 of them, all told. Mind you, you don't buy these motorcycles for $175 anymore. Some of these motorcycles cost upwards of $15,000. Some of the bikes I saw in Myrtle Beach cost $35,000 to $40,000. Special custom bikes. And I'm sure some of the bikes you're seeing here are 15 grand and up. You can compare that to the price we paid for our home in 1970, just a tad over $9,000. Look at the kitty cat in this boat. The guy who's pulling the boat has an English bulldog named Dumpster, I can tell you. SS Dakota, right there.
How they could get a cat to stay in there, I
have no idea.
Comprehend.
Drugs. Lots of drugs. There's a very dirty duck suit right there. And here it is. Clinton County Firefighters Association, Plattsburgh Noon Rotary, the fire safety house that you and I toured and talked about before it even got here, right?
Yes, and it's been a welcome addition to the North Country.
It certainly has been. It teaches kids and adults and senior citizens a great deal about fire safety. I was fortunate enough to be in on some of the talking sessions with the Clinton County Firefighters Association and the Morrisonville Fire Station when they talked about trying to get that fire safety house here. And at that time it was a dream. But you know, if enough people believe in dreams, they do come true. Another fire department heard from. We always spend a lot of time talking about the mutual aid system we have here in Clinton County. It works very well and is the envy of areas all over the United States. That's South Plattsburgh heading by.
Well, I think one of the things that makes our mutual aid so unique is that it's 2 states and 2 countries involved in it.
Exactly true. Exactly true. United States and Canada, across the border in Hemingford. A lot of our fire trucks have been to barn fires across the border over to Alberg, Vermont. Or great old music from the 1950s. Is that Mike Coughlin? Is that Michael? Where was he yesterday when we needed him? Mike Coughlin, who does some very good work for the Advocacy and Resource Center. Very nice float and good music. I told you we just recorded a program during the open house yesterday at the Merit Center. Loud, if nothing. That's great. Oh, look at this. Neat car. Again, the theme of the first 4th of July parade in the new millennium here in downtown Plattsburgh is 50 years of rock and roll. That's why you were just hearing Diana. Somebody painted a pretty good likeness of Miss Liberty there. That's the County Down Syndrome Association. There's so many wonderful human services organizations, health-related organizations here that don't get nearly enough publicity, and we'd like to take just a moment as we celebrate our nation's independence to thank all those people who volunteer or who work for very meager wages to help other people, their neighbors. Without you, we could never, ever get the job done.
Your neighbors.
These are the folks from the Morrisonville Fire Department. I work with Claudia Hardman, who's a probation officer, and her husband Jim Hardman, who was in on the Morrisonville ambulance service almost from the very beginning with my brother-in-law, Donald Dashnaw, who now lives in North Charleston, South Carolina. One of the great ambulance crews in the North Country. It's amazing how sophisticated volunteer firemen and volunteer ambulance crews have become in their ability to perform services. They almost have to have a college education. Look at that beautiful Dalmatian dog at the Cumberland Head truck. Isn't he neat? That's a fire dog.
And he's even got the Cumberland Head colors too. White, white and black.
Black and white, cool. That looks to me like Wolfgang Mattis. On the back of that, that's a hovercraft. And Wolf Mattis was originally on the original ice rescue crew. We have a special unit that's highly trained to save people in the wintertime in the icy waters of Lake Champlain. And we congratulate them. There's Cumberland Head's first fire truck, engine Wood 83. Sounds like it runs pretty good, doesn't it, huh?
Can't hear a thing.
Can't hear a thing, except a little low rumble. I always like to take an extra moment to salute the men and women from Rescue Hose number 5. I remember when they had their fire station on South Platt Street in Plattsburgh, and we used that building to count money for some of our muscular dystrophy street drives way back when. And it's been on the verge of extinction a number of times, and now it is used for almost every single fire. They do lighting, they fill Scott air packs. They have a tremendously busy, viable, and vital organization. And they're also squirting water on the crowd as they go by in the back and having a good time doing it too. These big trucks never cease to amaze me. Every time I see one go by, I'm reminded of a couple of years ago when you and I did the Woodman's days in Tupper Lake, and I had my little 10-year-old grandson Tony with us. When the big trucks went by, his eyes were as big as mine, and mine were pretty big.
There's some amazing vehicles out there. It's still one of the most unique parades that I've seen.
Absolutely. VFW Post 125, my good friend Len Skillen. 50 years of rock and roll, that's what it says right on the back of the truck. Len, one of my favorite golfers, and a big Joni James fan. If you ever see Len Skillen, ask him if he likes Joni James. A few nice old cars. There's a great old Cadillac.
I don't know if you've heard, but Joe's place is now open.
And if you didn't know before, you do know now. We can talk about the CVPH Medical Center and their theme, It's About Life, It's About You. I'm proud to serve as a member of the Foundation Board of Directors at CVPH, working to help people who are less fortunate than you are, from young kids to adults.
You know, I think a lot of the groups in here had a little trouble meeting the theme, and they didn't bother trying to. They didn't, get away from their theme, their main theme. And I think they can be commended for that.
Yep.
It's nice to have a parade theme, but I think their messages are a little more important than 50 years of rock and roll. Some of them.
It's a little different from the Plattsburgh State Homecoming Parade, where they have a theme and they have to pretty much adhere to it because they're all vying for attention. I think we've just about come to the end of the 4th of July parade, unless all these people are masquerading as real folks.
This is part of the parade here. It's 50 years of downtown Plattsburgh.
I wonder if Calvin can remember, as I do, how desperately I wanted to get in parades as a little kid. And when the parade would come by, man, my mother would give us a couple of rolls of red, white, and blue. What did you call that paper? That rolls of paper, whatever it was, and we'd put it in our spokes, boy, and head down the parade route.
And you wanted to pedal in the parade, huh?
I wanted to be the last float in the parade. Yeah, I think that is the tail end of it, and I have to tell you, that parade was almost 45 minutes long. Very special time and a very good time for people in the North Country. I hope you enjoyed your 4th of July wherever you spent it. I have no idea where I'm going to spend Tuesday. You got anything special planned for the actual 4th, Calvin?
Well, every year the Alberg Village has a parade on the 4th of July.
On the 4th, all right.
So 11 a.m. on the 4th of July, I'll be in beautiful downtown Alberg.
I don't mind taking just a moment to commend and congratulate Calvin Castine for his tremendous dedication to the people of the North Country since 1983 with Hometown Cable. How many of your sporting events has he covered? The interesting part of it is seeing some of the ball games of these kids who are now in their 30s, and you were covering them way back when.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of coverage. It was only a weekly show between 83 and April of 86 when I decided to start Hometown Cable. But from 86 to the year 2000, that's 14 years. So some of the kids graduating this year were preschoolers. Well, all of them were preschoolers when Hometown Cable was started. And they just grew up with it, and a lot of them from the northern tier just take it for granted. They just think that Hometown Cable is everywhere, and everybody has that kind of a service, and they just kind of think,
Every once in a while, like during the last couple of weeks, Calvin has to get up early in the morning, take a deep breath, and take stock and say, where have we been and where do we hope to go with this Hometown Cable thing? It's always been a struggle for the public access channels in the North Country, and I am delighted to have had Calvin walk into my living room shortly after Bob Venn died and said, would you consider continuing this tradition that Bob Venn set for a long time? And there were tremendous big shoes to fill, but I must say, for about 150 programs, it's been an awful lot of fun. We've met a side of many people you know that we never knew before. We've met people that were really unsung heroes. We met a guy by the name of Ron Venn at 72 Bailey Avenue and did 8 programs with him. And guess what? We have to go back because we didn't see half of the stuff the man has. We've been to a lot of events. We've been north of the border. We've been in Vermont. We've been in other counties. We've been over to Bolt Castle. And maybe this summer, sometime between the July 15th and the end of July, we'll get to find out a little more about the Gordy Little family as my brother Jim, if he makes it back from some Indian reservation in New Mexico with his wife, where they've been for a few months trying to be missionaries to the Navajos, we'll get a little bit about Jim's life, and you'll get to see how different and the same we are, because our voices are very similar. Although Jim never smoked, and I smoked 3.5 packs a day till 1975, so that may be the reason why my voice is so raspy. But you'll get to meet Jim and his wife Mary, and I don't know if they'll bring any kids or pets with them, but who knows what will be there. And maybe Calvin and his wife will be able to get up there and check it out. How about police on bicycles, huh? Yeah, you may see them around town and at your favorite campsites this summer. Pretty cool.
Yeah, a couple nights ago I was at my daughter's summer league basketball game. She plays for the local women's league, and Craig Hilchey was refereeing, and it was a hot day, and I said, "You're going to do 2 games?" He said, "I'm going to do 2 games." He was staying for the next game. He says, "Then if it doesn't rain, I'm going out on bike patrol." He's one of the patrolmen here in Plattsburgh. So he was going to referee 2 games in a hot gymnasium, then go out and pedal the bike.
Oh, man. I hope he had some jugs of water to accompany him. But it's not a bad duty. I've talked to a lot of the guys who've been doing that recently, and they kind of enjoy it. It's kind of nice to get around town on bicycles. We were in Maine a couple of weeks ago, and we noticed a lot of cops on bicycles. And guess what? They were getting there way faster than we were. We were there with Margot Cluett, who's on this health kick, and she loves to walk and jog. And we go out to eat at a restaurant, and we get in the car, and she'd say, "I'll see you back in the room." And we'd go 1.5 miles and get back to the room, and she'd come truck it in the driveway right after we got there. So there's a lot to be said for footwork.
Especially when traffic's heavy. You can move a little faster.
We all remember the mounted patrols in various communities. I remember them in New York City lots of times. A policeman on horseback. As a little kid, I was always enamored by the policeman on horseback.
Yeah, there's something special about the sight of that police officer up there, and of course it gives you that look of authority.
I see people carrying their fold-up chairs. Some people just kind of sat on the sidewalks.
Somebody just pulled the plug out of the drain, and everybody just disappeared.
Well, that's because the parade is over and there'll be other events. I would imagine many of these people will end up watching the concert later this evening down here by the monument, and the fireworks display, which they tell me is going to be the biggest and best ever. I'll tell you how old I am. Well, I won't tell you exactly how old I am. How old are you? Fireworks were legal in New York State when I was a youngster. I've mentioned this before perhaps, but man, we saved our money all year long. My brother and I, my brother Jim, who is 4 years older than I am, saved our money all year long, and we would get the fireworks catalog. And we would order the big, huge box of fireworks. I can't remember how much that huge box of fireworks cost. But boy, did we put on some shows. It's a miracle we didn't blow our brains out back in those days. I guess our parents taught us to be fairly safe. I can't remember any of my friends being injured by fireworks. I can't remember being up on that little iron bridge, green bridge, which still exists in Messina Center, although you can't drive over it, and taking model airplanes and putting tying rockets on the planes and shooting them off the bridge and have them blow up in midair. We were rather strange children, yes. But we built the plane, so that wasn't too bad.
You did that today, the school psychologist would have you in their office.
I'm sure there are a lot of psychologists who would like to have me in their office, but No, thank you.
Did I ever tell you about the first cherry bomb I ever came across?
No, tell me about it.
Well, it was I was a student at St. Mary's and couldn't have been too old, nor too bright. And Dean Trombley tossed a cherry bomb on the ground, and what's that thing flickering down there? I picked it up, had it in my hands, and everybody in school was hollering, "Get rid of it, get rid of it!" And I threw it, and it went off in midair.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
So it was could have been a very.
They would have called you one-hand Luke.
Yeah.
If you had held on to that thing. That's how close they came. I remember those cherry bombs, and when they first came out with a thing called A-bombs. After the infamous A-bomb in the end of the Second World War, they made these silver firecrackers that were about 2 inches long with a fuse that came midway out of the side, midway. They were tube-shaped, and they were extremely powerful. And I've told this story before in print and elsewhere about my brother and I found out they'd go off underwater. So we tied a stone to one and dropped it in my mother's beautiful galvanized wash tub in the backyard. She gathered rainwater to use inside. And we thought that would be great. We thought it would throw water up in the air, and it did. But it also blew the bottom out of the wash tub. And I can still remember my mother. My mother never swore, but that's probably as close as she came to swearing. And I can remember my mother could run pretty fast. She had a big broom out ahead of her. Boy, did we hit the neighborhood, I'll tell you that. It was pretty funny for a while.
You could have went fishing with those. You take those kind of explosives fishing with you.
Yeah. Do a little dynamiting for fish. I don't think that's legal either, is it?
No.
But anyway, yeah, we had a lot of fun with fireworks back in those days. Of course, it is not legal here. It's interesting when we make our little springtime trek to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, that you can go in the stores and buy fireworks there. And each night from our condo over the beach on the 11th floor, people would set off fireworks displays that were kind of neat. He's either very late for the parade or Plattsburgh Public Works Department shines. We'll consider that the last float in the parade, huh? Has it been a lot of fun? Absolutely. Well, look at who's coming over. The biggest flag waver of all. All right. How are you, sir?
The greatest things I've seen in a long time. See, they clip right onto the window.
Now, see? This is a
Spring
modern...
loaded, tight, fit. Somebody came up with a great
Chris
invention.
Ortloff. I love your tie. Look at
Thank
the
you, sir.
tie. Red, white, and blue. Is it neat? Is it neat to be here on a day like
great
today?
story about this tie. I had a red, white, and blue tie, got all frayed and worn. I needed a new one. I stopped into a factory outlet. I'm going through all the racks. Nothing, you know. I was about to give up. The sales girl comes over. What are you looking for? Well, I said, I got a red, white, and blue tie. I wear on Memorial Day, the 4th of July, and Memorial Day's coming up. She says, I think I have one in the back room, and here it is.
Isn't that amazing?
So the lesson is, if you don't find what you want, ask the sales clerk.
We've been having a good time here. The people started to gather, gosh, about an hour or more before the parade started. And it's great to see that old-time patriotic spirit survive in the new millennium.
Sure is.
To see downtown Plattsburgh with little kids and people who've seen many parades, old-timers here in their 80s and 90s, it's really neat.
And I'm looking around at the crowd that's still on their way home here. I thought the crowd today was, Gordy, as enthusiastic, as upbeat as any I've ever seen at a parade.
We love it. We love it.
It was great.
We like the rock and roll music. Calvin and I were recalling our favorite tunes as the bands came by.
Now, I saw Calvin this morning at the Medal of Honor ceremony in Malone.
In Malone.
Were you there, Gordy, for that?
No, I didn't make it, but Calvin was telling me about it.
That was a moving ceremony. And I hope that you were able to capture some of the speeches that were made in that, because it was.
He didn't make it.
It was
He
special.
didn't make it, but he did get 27 minutes of the parade.
It was a good parade too.
That was great.
Well, we had one of there are only 123 Medal of Honor recipients alive in the country, 3 of them in New York. and one of New York's 3 came to Malone today for that ceremony.
Isn't that
And he made the most wonderful speech, impromptu, without notes, just right from the heart, about the Medal of Honor isn't about wartime. It's about a life of sacrifice. It's a life of giving. It's a way of life. And of course, when we think of it that way, you know, all around us are people who live that way of life, and they may not have the Medal of Honor, but, you know, he really brought it all home.
We have so much to be grateful for, and we've covered all the nostalgia we could come up with, Calvin and I, of all the 4th of July parades we've attended since we were little kids trying to decorate our bicycles with crepe paper, red, white, and blue to get in on the tail end of the parade and through the spokes. You remember that.
Oh, yeah.
And you're a young guy.
You put baseball cards with
Baseball cards with a wooden clothespin.
Yeah.
Because that was the neatest sound.
And after a while, they'd wear out, and you'd have to replace them with a new one. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, good times, good times.
Good.
Let's talk about history a little bit now. How are we coming? Any new things toward the new interpretive center in that site?
I'm going to give you a scoop right now.
All right, scoop. There it is.
Friday at 12:30, out at the site, out at the barracks, we're going to announce the award of the contract for the feasibility study to study the feasibility of the museum, the historic site, the cemetery, and maybe even a little surprise in there, something that we can do this year.
Okay.
Friday at 12:30. You're invited. You'll be getting a release in due course, but I'll give you a scoop.
That's great. I mean, you know how excited we are about that place, about the history that it holds, about the future.
Well, I can tell you this: the group that won the bid to do the study has put together a design team that's just second to none. Cambridge 7 Associates out of Boston that's done the Boston Aquarium. I can't begin to list you the major national sites that Cambridge 7 has done. An architecture firm out of Waterford, New York, that just did the National Museum of Racing in Saratoga Springs. They're 2 of the 5 professional design teams that are on board to put our project together, and I'm real excited about it.
You've been excited from the very beginning. Passion is one of my favorite words, and it's fun when you get a passion for something and you don't stop until it comes to fruition. As many of our viewers are aware, the year 2014 is very significant around here, but I think the fever pitch has almost already been achieved.
Well, I hope so. We have a long ways to go, and there's no big project that doesn't have snags. So if you start planning early, you may have some setbacks, but you have plenty of time to deal with them. And that's my hope, is that we've planned early, that we have a very ambitious plan. The renovation of the barracks will probably cost us $2 million. We're looking to do that within the next 3 years. The recreation of the Saratoga will probably cost $8 million. We hope to have that underway by 2009, by the quadricentennial of the discovery of Lake Champlain, and have the ship floating and sailing by 2012. And, you know, along the way, we've
Great
got
incentive to live a long life, isn't it, Calvin?
But you got plenty of time, Gordy. You want to live till 2014 to see that celebration. And as I've said before, we plan to work with Baltimore so that the celebration of the bicentennial is a 4-day celebration that begins on the 11th in Plattsburgh and ends on the morning of the 14th at Fort McHenry with the 200th birthday of the Star-Spangled Banner. They all happened in the same 4 days, and they ought to be celebrated at the same time by the same coordinated effort.
It's going to be terrific. We enjoy being part of the history here. Calvin and I enjoy nothing more than going around looking at the old buildings, interviewing people who have been around here for a long time, talking to historians, and talking to just plain folks about their life in the North Country. I started this program about an hour and a half ago talking about how proud I am to live in this part of the world. We have a very special place here, and I take every opportunity to tell people how much I love it here and what a great place it is to raise a family and work.
It sure is. It sure is. The whole thrust of what the Battle of Plattsburgh Association is doing is recognizing that it's not enough for us just to enjoy that. that we have to share that with the country. What happened here saved the nation in a very real sense. The ground we're on today is the last city in America ever to be occupied by a foreign army, and nearly 200 years now. That's never happened again. We have a unique story to tell here. It's a story of how good preparation, confidence, a little bravery, strong character, and wit can win the day against overwhelming odds. That's a story and an example that the whole nation ought to learn from, and it happened here. It happened here from the 8th of September when they came through Champlain to the 11th when they fought the battle here in Plattsburgh. And we need to tell that story. Actually, the 3rd of September they came through Champlain. The 8th, the ships went by Rouse's Point. That's a long time. That's a little more than a week in which this ground we're on and the people who lived here and had their homes here and had banked their future on it thought they'd been occupied. They had been occupied, thought they might never again see freedom in the United States in their own homes without leaving. And it was a scary, scary thing that happened. We need to tell that story to the nation and bring them here.
We tried to cover that story from both sides of the border. Calvin and I have done a few programs up in the province of Quebec. About a month ago now, we went to Fort Chambly, which is about 15 miles north of Saint Jean, and learned that Prevost gathered troops up there in preparation for the Battle of Plattsburgh way back when, in August of that year, before coming down to engage in the Battle of Plattsburgh. And we also learned that a group of unknown soldiers from Dutchess County headed down with General Thomas down to Fort Chambly, and they all died of smallpox, and they're all buried there. And Daughters of the American Revolution, was it, from Saranac, went up there 75 years ago and dedicated a memorial which stands at Fort Chambly. And they had a rededication about a month ago, and Calvin and I were there to pick up that little piece of history. I had never been to that fort. Right as
Very well done, isn't it?
Right on the rapids of the Richelieu as they go out into the broader water, and just a whole different perspective. And we had some Canadian forces there and lots of people, and about 50 people from Clinton County were up there, and that was a nice celebration. So yeah, this is a pretty neat part of the country. And by the way, we're getting a very famous anchor back pretty soon, aren't we? That anchor from the Confiance is just about completed, isn't it?
I thought you were talking about somebody coming back to anchor the news.
Oh, you're going back to Channel 5?
Just kidding.
No, probably not.
Yeah, what are we now, 3 months away?
Yeah.
2 months away.
Yeah, it's
from
being
the return
restored.
of the
I guess
anchor.
it's doing very well.
It's just
It'll be
about
in
done.
City Hall, right?
Yep. That's where it's going to be for at least a while, and plans are already underway to move the Interpretive Center from City Hall out to the base. One of the things we hope we can accomplish in the next year is to refurbish one of the buildings so that the entire Interpretive Center can move out to the Plattsburgh Barracks. That's what I think. It's as things are evolving, we're looking at this as Plattsburgh Barracks being an attraction into itself, like Williamsburg or Upper Canada Village.
Oh, yeah.
And the Battle of Plattsburgh Interpretive Center in the Old Stone Barracks is actually conceived now of just being one of the many attractions that you can see if you go to Plattsburgh Barracks in another 10 years. And it's real exciting, Gordy.
When
real
this
exciting.
was a rather nebulous dream way back when, you and I talked right in front of this same hometown cable camera, but now it's so nice to see that you're still want to see those things happen.
Well, you come with us next Friday, and we'll have some plans for you to look at. They're concepts. They're not final, but they sure look exciting when you see it on paper.
You got to love it.
Yeah.
Chris Orloff, thanks for stopping by after another great 4th of July parade, the first one in the new millennium. It's a good day to be alive, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's great.
I like it.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You bet.
Keep waving that flag.
Bye-bye.
I hope you all have enjoyed your 4th of July. Wherever you were, wherever you are now, I hope you enjoy good health and happiness, great prosperity as we continue in this year 2000. I hope you occasionally turn your television on to your local public access channel, and I hope you stop when you see this fat belly And you know that Calvin's on the other end of that camera enjoying life in the North Country because we believe in it. And who knows where we're going to be next time for our little corner.